I want to ask you something. What would you say is a key part of our human nature, and moreover, our human existence, and our history? Maybe social interaction, love, caringness, or altruism. Maybe you can even say selfishness is a part of our human nature. Anyways, there's a lot of things to our nature, and I guess you could say our theme. And today we're going to be looking at a certain theme, the boys theme, the boys SMP theme, and moreover, the message of the boys, and how the intro of this video ties to the boys theme. So in order to find this out, we will look at A, characters, i.e. protagonists and antagonists, and what motivates them, and just what they are. B, the history of the boys and what have the main events throughout the story have been influenced by. And C, why I think altruism, egoism, and corruption have something to do with the theme. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we will first look at A, the characters and what drives and motivates them. Obviously, we will look at the main protagonist and the main antagonist, and what they do for the good, and what causes them to go down a path of evil. And of which we will look at the main protagonists, Ginger, Andy, and Tony. All these players have gone through a lot. Andy has long-term memory loss and can't remember who he really was. Tony has lost his father because of an unknown disease and was raised in a poor village just by his mom. And Ginger was a breed that was deemed unacceptable by the king and wanted him dead and was exiled due to the corrupt and wrongful government. Both Ginger and Andy had to watch their parents, legal or genetic, die in flames and had to go on a journey to avenge them. Andy to avenge his parents and his village, and Ginger destroying all wrongful governments to avenge the people that were wronged. In the current day SMP, and throughout the seasons, they often act very altruistically and run the lives of others. But, did you notice how I focused on only two of these characters? Well, it's because the last one had a history of being bad. Now, Tony definitely has all the characteristics of all the other protagonists and heroes, and still acts altruistically today. But he still has a past, and in Season 1, he somehow became infected by a disease, being corrupted, and eventually being overcome with hatred and love for chaos, and destroying the nation he had created. And this will lead us nicely into the antagonist section, and what motivates them, and what causes them to be the way they are. In the villain section, we will look at the main villains of the SMP, Icy Stuff, Gavinator, and King James. What motivates them, and what made them to be what they are. Icy was born into a village full of wealth and explorers and saw many treasures and mysteries that he became very fascinated in. Gavinator was born into the town of Islinsk and was born into a dynasty and was next in line, and lived an extravagant lifestyle compared to the rest of the population. James' story is very mysterious, since his lore and his role in the story has changed. It's likely that his lore has changed as well. Still, throughout the history of the boys, Icy's before Season 1 became an adventurer and explorer, viewing poor people quite poorly. Meanwhile, on the exact opposite, Gavinator became a person for the people, and explored solely only for survival. Then, throughout the seasons, Gavinator became more altruistic and caring, and Icy's as well changed, and even joined the communist nation of Kainam in Season 1. Even James, even though his lore might have changed, he still wasn't like evil or anything, until something horrible happened. In Season 1, after Icy's was chased off from Kainam, he found himself in Terra, and was trying to find everyone else, but eventually got completely buried by a wither. After a week, he emerged once again, and still tried to find everyone, but nobody came, falling into a deep state of depression and searching for anything that can make him happy. And he did. found a black rose after hearing something loud, and it told him that it could make him happy, and that if he spread it across the world, it would make him powerful. And then proceeded to become one of the bad guys in Season 3, after finding where his friends were. Now, of course, he just wanted to be happy, but in Season 3, after his friends were trying to find out what he was doing, he then was the major reason to cause the nuclear annihilation of the world. And he also wants to do something else, and he will likely do whatever it takes. So he clearly became like Tony, falling to the same greed, selfishness, and love for something, just like him. This is the same for other villains. Gavinator being completely infected by another force similar to Ices, and the mysterious disease that Tony had, and also being lied, manipulated, and even controlled by his fourth great grandfather to become what his grandfather wanted. And James even falling for this, although what caused him to be like this is still unknown. I guess you could say they're corrupted, because a lot of these villains were actually good before they were influenced by something. And so now we have a clear chart, the protagonist being altruistic and caring for others. Meanwhile, the antagonist being corrupted, somehow either by internal causes or external forces. I mean, hell, if you want to go far enough, you could even say that the protagonists were corrupted by the antagonist's actions. Because, spoilers, in Season 4, some of the protagonists become more hardened and rude, acting more like vigilantes and anti-heroes more than heroes. But of course, these are just the characters, and we still have questions like, what is this external force? What about the main events of the story? And that is what I'll cover. At the beginning of Season 1, the characters that are known as Andy, Tony, Gimmerly, and Death Creeper created the Nation of Terra. More people coming to this new town, including Ices, Gavinator, Heroinded, Mixed Genetic, Nick Joke, etc. Then leaders of the town decided to create an election to decide who would be president, vice president, etc. But during the process of deciding who won, Ginger stepped up and caused an all-out civil war in Terra. Eventually, in the end, the war calmed down, with Ginger to be exiled out of the land of Terra. Unfortunately, however, this resulted in another issue of Gavinator starting his own nation because of his point of view, with a few problems between the two nations of Kainom and Terra. This would eventually lead to a conflict, with Gavinator preparing a war, and Terra preparing a festival to celebrate the SMP. And meanwhile, he was planting TNT before it began, but calling it off because they realized they did nothing wrong, and destroyed all the TNT, saving Terra another day to live. But unfortunately, Terra didn't last that long. Tony at some point contracted a disease. This disease was unlike any other disease before, because instead of making people sick, it made them go mad. This is what soon caused the end of Terra, with Tony blowing it up with several brothers, and the citizens of Terra becoming split. Ginger also partakes in this by destroying Kainom and the other town of Taxstone. This is what soon caused Ices to flee Terra Kainom and to go to Terra, and eventually got buried by a wither. Then, she needs to wake up and find another variant of the mysterious disease Tony contracted. Season 2 was very boring and not much lore, so all you need to know is two teams were formed. That were Redstonia and the gnome-named village. From the remains of Terra that would soon combine once again. Ices looking shy, searching for his friends, and Gavinator entering into a deep state of depression because of Ices' death, and ended up killing himself. But somehow waking up once again, deciding to accept what he had done in his past. And after that, wanting to find out why he had survived so many times. He literally committed suicide and killed himself many times. And he soon found his answer, finding an ancient structure under his base, and found a compass that would lead him to something, and also found something from that base that he would yet to figure out who it was. In Season 3, Isis came back. Estonia and No Name team merged to form New Silken/Exalia. Gavinator found where the compass led and contracted the mysterious disease. Soon finding out what it was doing to him, he wanted to destroy it where this thing came from. Meanwhile, the festival was being held to celebrate the SMP once again, and everything was fine until something went wrong. Gavinator was not only missing, but a sudden boom came from under him, finding a cave that led to a room that contained a mysterious, destroyed black skull. A meeting is then held to discuss the fact of what happened and where Gavinator was, and why Isis didn't show up to the meeting. Also to discuss the mysterious crater that had fallen down to the surface. Meanwhile, Gavinator had a moment with the thing he had found at the old ancient structure, coming back to realize he was on the run, moving away, and still wondered why he still had issues with the disease. Isis became more infected with the other variant of the disease. The meteor led to a book search because of a few items with a mysterious language imprinted on it that apparently was in the book. A search that eventually led to the disappearance of Isis, led to an investigation of what he was doing and what Malceptive really was, using Ginger as a spy. Gavinator continued to be hunted down and corrupted more and more by the disease, leading him to view Exalia as an enemy and then creating a nuclear program to combat them, building up a big stockpile. Ginger sent info back to Exalia about what happened when he met up with Malceptive. Although Gavinator found out that they were spying on Malceptive, telling Malceptive about his nuclear arsenal and that they were being spied upon, eventually leading to Isis ordering nukes to be launched, and soon Exalia and a big part of Ekron being completely erased off the map, causing a nuclear winter for the years to come. That's what leaves us where we are today in the history of SMP. Alright, so now that we have covered all of the boys' seasons' history, we can see that a lot of the major events, conflicts, and wars ended up being caused by a force corrupting a person externally or internally, usually by a mysterious disease and its variants, which I have avoided naming because it symbolizes something very important, and its name is the Withered Disease. The Withered Disease has influenced the majority of the events and villains throughout the history of the SMP, and it's incredibly mysterious. No one really knows where it began, when it began, and how it even came to be. But there's one thing we could possibly say. It symbolizes hate, selfishness, greed, and egoism, with this filling out the character chart we created earlier. With all this done by looking at the characters and the story and the main events and what they're influenced by, we can finally come to a conclusion and figure out what the overall message and theme of the boys is. So with all this wrapped up, by looking at the characters and looking at the story overall, what is the theme of the boys? To me, now I'm not 100% correct on this, it's corruption. And that is what drives the story so far right now. And so we can create a chart like the one we created earlier. There are two themes. The textually theme, that means within the story, and the metatextually theme, like the message of the story. Textually, the theme of the boys right now is corruption, and that is what drives the story right now. And metatextually, I think it's selfishness, power, greed, and how it can corrupt us, and overall the bad parts of our human nature, with the Withered Disease symbolizing the bad parts of our human nature, and how if we're not careful, it can lead to the end. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed the video. It took really long to make this one, especially writing the script. And also, the point of this video wasn't to be like 100% correct, like, oh my god, my point of view on the theme of the boys is 100% correct. No, I'm not even like an owner of like the SMP, like one of the owners of the SMP, or like even a moderator. or hell, even the creative authority. The SMP lore is largely decentralized and disconnected. The point of the video is just to, get people interested in this topic and bring more light to the bulls. And so yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.